Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our coverage of the ongoing civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia, and obviously, as reported yesterday, there continues to be a tenuous ceasefire, a humanitarian ceasefire, at least on paper, in terms of both sides somewhat acknowledging this, again, humanitarian ceasefire. And again, this humanitarian ceasefire was agreed to by the Tigrayan Defense Forces under the auspice that indeed humanitarian aid would be allowed into the Tigray region. And unfortunately, for all sides involved, and specifically the people of the Tigray region, that is not occurring. The Abiy loyalist formations in the area of operations, both in the Afar region and obviously in the Amhara region as well, are continuing to not allow much needed food and medicines into the Tigray region. And obviously one of those issues at hand being reported by the Abiy loyalists is the fact that fighting still continues in the Afar region, and Tigrayan Defense Forces are still operating in the Afar region. Now, to refresh everybody's memory in terms of why the Tigrayan Defense Forces indeed have taken control of sites like Abala, displayed here on my map, and Berhale as well, is because Afar regional militia units were staging attacks to include sending reconnaissance elements into the Tigray region to then direct fire by drones in this ongoing conflict. So again, the whole initial reason for the Tigrayan Defense Forces in terms of crossing into the Afar region and establishing this security zone was simply due to the fact that Afar regional forces were continuing to attack into the Tigray region via Abala and via the area of operations near Berhale. So again, the idea that the Tigrayan Defense Forces would withdraw from these areas after already sustaining attacks from those areas by these Afar regional militia units that do not always adhere to orders from Addis Ababa and obviously the leadership of the Prosperity Party and Abiy Ahmed. It is probably at this point in the best interests of the Tigray region to maintain its forces in the Afar region. And again, in terms of the withdrawal of Tigray Defense Forces from other areas, we've kind of seen this before, where initially most observers believed that if the TDF were to depart from areas such as Dessie, Kombolcha, Shia Robit, Debre Sena, Weldia, Kobo, that in fact we would then see elements of this siege lifted and at least have the ability to see food and medicine being delivered to the Tigray region. Now, unfortunately, after the Tigrayan Defense Forces departed from these areas, we did not see that occur. The Anaconda strategy is still in full effect, and quite possibly we are on the verge of seeing this so-called humanitarian ceasefire dissolve into quite possibly renewed and open conflict. Now again, we are seeing a buildup of Abiy loyalist forces near Kobo. It is our opinion that the ENDF, the Abiy loyalist forces, do not have the capability to launch a renewed and all-out invasion of the Tigray region. Again, going back well over a year ago, the Abiy loyalist forces attempted this when the Tigrayan Defense Forces were not fully mobilized, with roughly 9,000 to 10,000 active duty personnel defending the Tigray region. Now, with the Tigray military being fully mobilized, with upwards to some reports indicate upwards to 400,000 personnel under arms, Again, it would be highly unlikely that we would see any form of success if these Abiy loyalist forces were to reinvade the Tigray region, even with the assistance of the Eritrean army as they had before. In other news, we're continuing to hear about fighting taking place in the western Tigray region. Again, the western Tigray area of operations. We have really seen the Abiy loyalists. We have really seen the ENDF remove itself from Western Tigray, and part of that effort is again to deal with the Oromo Liberation Army that continues to make advances in the both the western and southeastern Oromia region. And right now, the forces that are holding down the western Tigray region, that occupy the western Tigray region, are obviously Amhara regional forces, Fano, and then obviously the Eritrean army as well. If the Eritrean army were to remove itself from Humera or be evicted from Humera, again, the Eritrean army really kind of walks away with absolutely zero net gain in this conflict, and quite frankly, the Abiy loyalist forces right now are sitting with zero net gain, and actually a bit of a net loss in terms of both personnel, material, and areas that the Tigrayan Defense Forces continue to occupy, such as DRK, near Waja, south of Alamata, and other areas just on the other side of the shared Amhara-Tigrayan regional border, and obviously the security buffer zone that has been established by the Tigrayan Defense Forces. But at this point, again, we believe in MFAM that these forces that are being deployed, especially near Kobo, appear to be defensive in nature because, again, because of this continued Anaconda strategy, it may leave the Tigrayan Defense Forces no other choice but to reinitiate open warfare against the Abiy loyalist forces in an attempt to once and all to break the Anaconda siege that is strangling the Tigray region and quite frankly starving much of the Tigray populace by not allowing obviously food and medicine into the region. And right now, given the situation on the ground with the Oromo Liberation Army and the full mobilization of the Tigray region, it's very likely, at least, we could see some sort of very large renewed operation by the TDF at some point, given they really don't have any other choice if the Abiy loyalist forces continue to maintain this type of Anaconda strategy and continue to try and starve out the Tigray region as we see it. But again, that's the news on the ground for today. We continue to monitor events very, very closely. It would appear that again, both the TDF and obviously the Tigray regional leadership is becoming incredibly frustrated over the lack of supplies that were initially promised in terms of not really promised, but by the Abiy loyalists, but by humanitarian agencies that would be allowed to be led into the country or the Tigray region by both the Afar regional forces and the Abiy loyalist forces. But as of right now, both the Abiy loyalist forces and Afar forces and Amhara forces, again, are not allowing these international aid agencies to deliver the food and medicine into the Tigray region as they maintain the siege. And again, the whole reason and rationale for said humanitarian ceasefire was to allow that into the country, into the Tigray region. But unfortunately, that is not being allowed, and ultimately a renewed military solution may be in the works, at least for the Tigray Defense Forces, in terms of breaking this ongoing siege. But again, we'll continue to monitor and report as events warrant. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.